Hi,
My name's J.C. McCauley.
I'm Naisha McCauley, and you're watching AccessTV.org.
All right, my friends, once again, it is indeed time to get our talk on. It's More Than Talk with me, your host, J.C. McCauley, along with the champions of talk, Kasiki in the house, Dr. Bowen in the house.
Yep.
There she is.
Yes.
Beaming in live via Zoom from her secret location, deep in the heart of Connecticut somewhere. It's none other than Dr. Maya Bowen. Good morning, Dr. Bowen. How are you doing? Happy New Year.
Good morning. Happy New Year. I'm doing awesome. The first Wednesday of the year. You know what? I started thinking about all the different dynamics that are happening around and about us. And those specific dynamics have a lot to do with technology. I've just put a little inkling in. Imagine if it is that you went to a McDonald's and there was no one there to serve you because everything was automated. In fact, it currently is, and it's being tried out in, I believe, the state of Texas, where McDonald's has no service workers and everything is automated.
No
so
service
keep that
workers.
in mind. Keep that in mind, folks.
You'd be a fool to shop there.
Jobs.
You'd be a fool to shop in a place like that. I discourage people from shopping at those self-checkouts and stuff like that because, unfortunately, people lose their jobs behind stuff like that.
Oh, this is the dynamic that I was touching on in 2022. A lot of what it is that we know to be the quote unquote norm in terms of available jobs will become automated because it's being tested out in a variety of small pockets as pilots. And so where it is that our students and our older generations need to really start considering how it is that they can pivot into
transition,
knowing a lot more, pivot, transition into knowing a lot more about how to work the technology and understand the technology and fix the technology. Those are where the big money is. And again, if it is that these service fields become automated because most likely there is a way that automation can get the job done more efficiently and at less cost for businesses, because we know businesses care more about the dollar than the person. Then, as a person, as an individual, you have to prepare yourself and getting an understanding of how you can fit in as a technician or a programmer, or specifically just being a individual that can gain some type of income based on technology. There's a big shift coming, regardless of whether or not people want to embrace it. It's coming, but the question is, are you going to be ready for it?
Well, the shift is definitely coming. It's coming. It's 2023, new year rolling out. People free distribution. Kasiki.
Good morning,
brother. How are you?
Good. Good morning, Dr. Maya. Good morning, Stan. Good morning, family, listeners, viewers. A very interesting topic that Dr. Maya, chose to start the day off with. I'm intrigued by it.
There we go.
I have always, and I hate to burst your bubble or anybody else's, Stan, but it's not coming. It's been here for a while now. It's just kind of been disguised, and it's kind of blowing up in our faces now with all these algorithms and all this technology going on, So, yeah, beautiful. But I just want to start the day off by sharing an observation with the young people out there. If you're in our community and you're selling drugs, I'm talking about drugs like crack and heroin and things like that. If you're committing acts of violence, I just want you to know that there's no honor in that when you're committing violence in your own community. And for the people that support that kind of stuff, stop that foolishness, man. Don't support foolishness. Let's move in 2023 every step that we take must be done in intelligence. And that's my observation for the young people today. We have identified the enemy, and it's not us. So let's think about
that. I co-sign on that. A lot of times when we start thinking about how it is that the society has been designed, whereby we need to utilize money in terms of a resource and all the lack that exists, we already know that poverty isn't really going anywhere. So here's where we have to understand a way to bridge the gap between what it is that is quote unquote easy money versus the consequences of that easy money. Because there's really no such thing as easy money. Because if at the end of the day you could wind up dead or in jail, that's not beneficial to anybody besides the people that are going to be making money off of your short-sightedness and understanding that there are consequences through the violation of laws, right? And so if we dive back into the technology aspect, we've got so many individuals that have a technical or a technology mindset in regards to how things work. Think about all the youth and beyond that like to play games in terms of video games. Now, if they can sit there for hours and play those video games, well, what would stop them from saying, you know what, maybe I could design a video game? As a matter of fact, Stan, correct me if I'm wrong, one of your daughters is heavily into that tech aspect in terms of the video game design and collaborating with her peers and the like, and coming up with different types of she's a content creator. She doesn't do game design. I did have my oldest son went to school for video game design, but that we reserve that conversation for another time. But he went to school for that. But but to your point, I think the advice that you're giving as it relates to the youth and that Lou was giving is for the kids who are not necessarily entangled in that. Because once the person is engaged in criminal activity, whether they're in the White House or on the corner street, they understand the life and the risks of criminal activity. They've made a conscious decision to be involved in underground criminal activity. So the rational, logical debate doesn't resonate. But for the young people who think that's a glamorous life, absolutely. And there are, I think, more adults in the whole gaming sphere than kids, especially like in Twitch and places like that. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry, and adults with the are heavily involved in gaming, and they sit at home.
Anybody who grew up in the 80s or after, I don't play video games. I have no interest in any of them. I play chess. That's what I play. But everybody in that generation, I see, guys that are 40 and 50 and they invest heavily into the gaming systems.
Oh yeah. But I would suggest, I'm not suggesting that you do, because it's almost as I can't say it's more addictive than chemical drugs, but the endorphins that you get from the victories, it just is in. But imagine having a chess club where all the members of the chess club are playing virtually with people from all over the world.
That already happens, brother.
Right. So that's gaming.
Right.
That would be gaming.
No, I
so
listen,
that's so
I
have
kids. I see them with their headsets and their fancy controls, and they have fancy chairs. They invest a lot of money. But I want to just digress a little bit about this, because one of the reasons that I put that message out is because I'm watching in some of these huge urban centers like Chicago and Detroit, and they have these magnificent young men that are incredible, and young women that are incredible artists, but they're also super hardcore gangbangers that start out gangbanging, they get into the music, and then they put the gangbanging down for the music, and then they get killed. You know what I'm saying? It's like you can almost step by step. You know the sequence. So the reason that I said that is I have a lot to say, obviously, but let me start out by saying this. We have to understand that we have had nothing to do with defining a lot of these terms, most of the words in the dictionary. Black and brown people have very little to do with the definition of those words. So I think that because we're not speaking a language that we can relate to, it's almost like we're speaking a language by rote. We're not listening to each other. And I would like the audience, Dr. Maya Stan, to think about how that works in a lot of other areas of our society as far as our youth. And think about strategies or tactics that we can use to get these kids into the music that they so much love, or whatever, art they're into, before they get, before we lose them. I mean, these are some super talented, and obviously, the life of, the loss of human life, man, but there's so much talent. How do we get to them before they get involved in stuff like that?
Some people are born into it, Lou, sadly.
No, and I understand that. I understand that, but how do we create avenues for them to kind of transition out of that? You know what I'm saying?
It's a full blown societal dynamic that we have to consider. What are they being bombarded by? Is their behavior being actually promoted in different venues and industries? Is it being rewarded in terms of how they think and how they behave as well, right? So you have to think about what they see in terms of the different types of media, right? So in movies, is violence, sex, drugs, and violence, is that being promoted? And the answer obviously is yes. So if it is that you are being indoctrinated into a specific way of thinking and behaving, the paradigm shift comes in where, from a societal perspective, we have to change. Because here's the thing, if they're being influenced not only from their inner circle, but also kind of like glamorized outwardly in mainstream society, then what do we switch off to in order to say, you know what, no, this is not acceptable? So I think what we need to really do is redefine what our societal standards are, what's going to be, accepted and what's unacceptable. And that really starts from the micro level, the small circle that we actually find ourselves in, and broadens outward into the macro. Because here's the thing, if it is that my small circle is, congratulating me on whatever negative thing that I actually am doing, then the negative that is, producing negative consequences is being celebrated. It's like an oxymoron. How do you celebrate negative and think that there's going to be change? So the strategy that we have to be seeking is changing the dynamic on how it is that standards are actually reinforced and consistent. Because as it is now, if it is that what I'm doing from a negative perspective is glamorized as well as celebrated, then I don't see a need to change, because everything is okie dokie artichokey, right? So again, she's really using a paradigm shift where it is that we take what we see as not being good for the individual or the greater society, and shifting into a mode where we can actually produce some better thinking as well as behaviors. Otherwise, as I explained to chaos in society. It reminds me of a volcano. Think about it. A volcano is going to be in and of itself constantly brewing, right? So it's an individual entity brewing. Once it is that volcano or volcanic eruption occurs, that's when us as the outsiders actually feel those particular results. And it's not pretty. But the thing that we're missing is that we have to have individuals take ownership of how it is that they deal with things from an emotional perspective, as well as how it is that they see things in terms of their values, specifically life, their own life and the life of others. And that boils down to having an understanding of what it means to respect self as well as others. It's a huge dynamic, but it's an individual by individual journey that has to be taken, and it's big. It's bigger than me. It's bigger than you. It's been going on before I was born as well as you, and until it is that we take ownership of our mental, spiritual, and physical, that's where it all is going to actually culminate in changing these chaotic winds that we actually see.
You said a lot of stuff, and I don't know if I agree with any of it or how I feel about it. But you certainly said a lot of stuff. I would say that once again, for me, it's just like the other thing that bothers me about this, right along with the stuff that you said, is that how do we, like, I've never met a gang member who's been in a gang for a minute, for at least a couple of years, who didn't regret it, who wished things were different. The 10-year veteran, the 20-year veteran, when you get them alone, they always tell you, if I could do things different, I would. But I'm in this life now and I can't get out. I did things that I know I'm going to pay for, whatever. You know what I'm saying? So the reason that I say that is, how do we create an avenue for people to transition?
It would seem to me that...
because I don't think society, like you said, Dr. Maya, you used the word societal. I don't think society is very welcoming of people like that sometimes. To get them back in the fold, to just to be regular folk again. You know what I'm saying? To do no harm kind of thing.
It would seem to me that they already have avenues. I think we see where people are, and then we try to create avenues for either them to avoid where they are. They have off ramps. If there's someone having a conversation with you about where they are and the fact that they don't like where they are, and if they could change it, they would, but they're trapped. Well, they can change it. They're having a logical conversation with you about it. They choose not to. I think they have on ramps, or they're sitting at a 5-point intersection. Now, it's up to them to decide what road they want to go down. Because the thing that you hear people saying, I hear people saying about almost every kind of job. I hate this place, but I got 20 years in. Yeah. I just do 3 more years, I'll be able to retire. Yeah. I would quit right now, but I can't. I would have quit 10 years ago. I hear people tell me this kind of stuff all the time. I have people that I talk to involved in party politics who don't like what's going on, but they got to hang in there another 3 or 4 years. When they get out, then they can speak freely. This is the cost of them doing that kind of job.
Selling themselves out.
They lease themselves. I heard a sports commentator talking about the NFL and how players lease their physical body to the system for a price. They're paid. They're generally paid. Only the big stars get paid big money. So on average, the average sports player, football player, might be making $250,000.
No, they have a minimum. I think it's $300.
$300. Okay, so he was in the ballpark.
And that sounds like a lot of money.
It's not a lot of money.
That's making $30,000 or $40,000.
Talk more into your mic.
That sounds like a lot of money for someone who's making $30,000 or $40,000 a year.
But look,
but even if you're making $3 or $4 million or even $10 million, Stan, you're making $10 million a year. You've been in the league for 2 years. You're 22 years old. Now you're 24. Now your leg is broken,
right?
And you're not going to walk the same again. And then you're not going to get that $10 million. You're going to get a part of it, right? Because that's all in the contract. So how much really is that?
It's not a lot of money.
It's not a lot of money.
It's not a lot of money.
When you're putting yourself on the line, and is an incredible topic that you picked, because we see that in the young man that was hurt in the game on Monday night.
Right, but the point I'm making is to answer your question about the on ramps and off ramps.
Okay.
To him, he spent his whole life trying to get there. He knows that there's pain. He knows that this is a gladiator blood sport.
Yeah.
He thinks he's not going to be the one to get hurt.
Yeah.
Right.
The drug dealer believes he's not the one who's going to get killed. He's the one that's going to make so much money he could retire. The doctor, I was at the dentist office a couple weeks ago, and I could tell that the guy, I won't name the place, but the guy, I could tell he was trapped. Because he's just like a...
Where were you again?
I was at the dentist's.
That's what I thought
office.
You said.
Yeah.
You felt like your dentist was trapped.
He was trapped because he's part of a conglomeration.
Yeah.
And he's just doing his part.
Yeah.
He doesn't get to do anything but that one thing.
Yeah.
And he's sitting over there watching the World Cup, and he's waiting, and he comes over, and he does this, and the assistant comes, and you could just see there's no joy in it.
No.
And
it's all by rote.
It's right. To the degree that... you go in, you have a dental exam. They're not looking at what you actually need. They're looking at what
they can get paid for.
What's the most expensive action they can do to get paid for right now.
Right.
And that's the first thing they do.
Right.
And you can tell there's this, it's all about the money. There's no fulfillment. And, he was having a conversation with one of the techs. And the depression in the conversation was palatable. I felt bad for the guy. And if he could just...
Palpable.
Thank you.
You said palatable.
I meant palpable.
Yes, that's why.
I have a golden rule when something is said wrong, correct it. Because everyone in the audience knows you said something wrong. Don't try and act like you were right when you were clearly wrong. I appreciate the correction,
and I hope that you were not offended.
I would be offended to be wrong and you not saying anything.
Okay, thank you.
So friends correct each other, right?
Thank you.
That's right.
Right. Your unreal friends will just let you keep talking.
Yeah, they'll let you walk around with a little piece right here under your nose. No, you don't have any.
I've had that happen to me.
Those aren't real friends, right? But people do have choices, and so they choose to get into things and then they choose to stay in them. And I think people need to be, I think we can provide safe exits. I think we have to be able to provide safe exits for people, strategies to get people away. A lot of youth agencies in Hartford will provide ways to get certain youth out of the city because they're heading down a bad road.
Yeah,
there's talk on the street about how the next time somebody sees you, might not end well.
Right.
So we're going to get you out of town.
Right.
Those are the kinds of off-ramps. I know people here in Hartford that got here from L.A. Or other places because someone had to get them out of town.
Right.
Off-ramps. Because we can't go back in time and prevent it. So I think that there needs to be one message that's to the kids that aren't caught up yet, and another message for the young people and older people that are caught up in a lifestyle or in activities that they would like to get out of. And so I think if you're talking about words and language that we use to communicate ideas and notions, thoughts, if we're going to communicate to people how to change, then they need to be given the verbal tools, and we need to use language as means to provide for them an escape. What's the escape mechanism? How do we get them opportunities to leave or change? Because to want to get out, but then at the end of that conversation stay, but I can't. Well, how do we explore how you can? How do we turn your can't into a can? What is necessary for you to be able to get out?
I would just briefly add to that, Stan, that initially I also stated that how do we reach these young people before they get involved in that?
Oh, that's, yeah.
And then once they do, how do we provide safe ways for them to transition that are non-judgmental, that are completely welcoming, and they're engulfed by the community in positive ways. So that was the whole idea behind that.
All right, well, we will be right back. Stick and stay. First break. Morning talk. Hold on.
Independent thinkers are Puerto Rican, Mexican, Peruvian, Indian, Bosnian, Italian, Irish, Jamaican, African American, European, straight, gay, Nigerian, transgender, Christian, Jewish, Muslim, short, tall, skinny, rich, poor, happy, sad. Some of us hold a PhD and others a GED. And though we may be Democrats, Republicans, or members of the Working Families Party, we all have escaped the plantation of party politics and become independent thinkers because we as individuals are more than a party. You see, independent thinkers come from all walks of life. And the one thing we all have in common is that we love, live, laugh, and learn in the city of Hartford. We are the constituents, and the government of Hartford belongs to us. My name is J. Stan McCauley. I'm an independent thinker, and I approve this message because it's time to stop towing the party line and vote for a candidate you can trust. You too can escape the plantation of party politics if you have the courage to free your political mind.
Hi, so my name is Nelky Maldonado.
My name is Ramon L. Arroyo.
And we know that Hartford Parent University provides good services and resources to parents in our communities, which are greatly needed because a lot of times our parents, they don't know where to go, how to get information, and being part of this program is essential to them in being successful in their children's education.
And I think that parents should get involved in their kids' education because it's very important. Education is, I always believe, is a success in life. If you got a good education, you can be very successful.
So we encourage our parents to please come join the program, ask lots of questions, and I'm telling you, you won't be disappointed.
Hi,
My name's J.C. McCauley.
I'm Naisha McCauley, and you're watching AccessTV.org.
All right, my friends. It's Morning Talk. Welcome back. JC and McCauley here with the champions of talk. Dr. Maya Bowen and Kasiki are in the house. Where were we?
We were talking about, the topic of the youth and how to create, spaces for them to get involved in their creativity, in their creative gifts before they get into the streets, into the gangs, whatever. And, creating also, and when they do get in, also creating a safe way for them to exit, to exit that life and to transition into the community. And so let me just say this, Dan, before we go on, because we got a lot of stuff to talk about. I just want the audience to know, once again, that although there are many words in the dictionary with a definition, we haven't had much to do with the definition of those words. So I'm going to give you a definition of a word to give the audience, the listeners and the viewers, an examples of what I'm talking about. When I talk about community, I know a lot of people run to their dictionary to figure out what community is. But to indigenous people, our definition of community is not in the dictionary. When I talk about community, I'm talking about everything. I'm talking about the coming together of humans, animals, and nature. You know what I'm saying? That's what community is to us. It's not just a group of people that don't know, the left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing. So that's just a small example of how we have a definition for words that other people are very unfamiliar with. So Stan, when
I like that. Yeah, I like that definition. You know what I've been looking at in terms of it as being something that is put into practice, though, right?
That's the key right there, Dr. Maya. You hit the nail on the head, sister.
The practice aspect of it, right?
Yes.
It really and truly has me thinking about how divide and conquer has been one of the the greatest tactics that has been deployed onto humankind. So, for example, in order to make sure that individuals do not combine to make up the community, what better way than to divide and conquer? Have one group thinking another group is better, have one group having more than the other group, and having that holistic perspective whereby if I've got an edge up on you, then you are not for me. And so with the combination, so for example, a bag of Skittles does not differentiate itself because Skittles come in a variety of colors. When you get Skittles, you get the whole mix in terms of tasting the rainbow. And if it is that in our society, we too are that rainbow, then why is it that we are not choosing to become the community that can advance from a positive and productive perspective so many different types of results that we seek as a community? For example, do no harm. Imagine if it is that every household had the standard where we're not going to do any harm, not to self, not to others. And that was practice from household to household, as well as when it is that we find ourselves in the greater society. That would change the dynamic of how it is that we engage with each other, forming that community. Now, here's the thing. Our youth go to buildings that are housing places where education is supposed to occur. The question becomes then, is that actually happening? And if it's not, then why not? And then how do we get to a point where it actually is happening? Are we as individuals actually respecting other individuals for their differences and embracing those differences so that we can get what needs to be done from a positive and productive way done? This right here, my friend, is a huge dynamic and paradigm shift when I say paradigm shift, I'm talking about us thinking in a different way so that we can accomplish more positive and productive outcomes. Because right now, if it is that you're going into a school and let's say, for example, the adults disrespect you, think about the truancy rates, think about the absenteeism rates. If a child is feeling like they are not a part of or don't belong there, more likely than not, they're not going to go to school. Because why? Nobody is or has taken an active role in embracing that individual as the individual has value or adds value to the quote unquote community aspect of that school building. So there's a huge dynamic going on in terms of just basic respect for other individuals in regards to them being an individual, and not only an individual, but a unique individual that can add value to that environment. So there's a lot going on here that needs to be actually addressed and corrected so that we can put into practice the community aspect that you're speaking of, Lou.
Oh, I'm laughing because Dr. Bowen is. I'm visually. I'm seeing her at the supermarket, and she's picking up everything off the shelf and putting it in the cart. And so you're putting a lot on the table, Dr. Bowen, and you're flowing from one thing to the next to the next to the next. But it's all good. It's all good. But
and not just that, but it all fits in. It's a lot of different parts, but it's when you put it together as a puzzle, they all fit in.
That's true. But we gotta. It's hard to respond to the first item by the time you get to the last one. That's
okay. Let's synthesize so that
slow them down a little bit. So
this is not a 1-day class, Dan. This is gonna have a lot of we can come
that's
back
true.
to a lot of
but as I often have to remind when the two of you get to going, that this is not a conversation that the two of you are having. There are people watching who you're melting their minds. Because they may not be back until next week, so we want them to depart with at least an answer to some of the things that you're throwing out on the table. Because it's all good, it's all good. Yeah.
So what do we want to talk on to break down that large shopping cart that I just?
Well, the first thing that Lou said was
that we have to figure out ways that our children, our youth, have safe ways to exhibit their creativity before they get into the street. And once they do get into the street, if we fail, it's a societal failure. That's not an individual failure. I want to put that's a community failure. Let's put it like that. So when we do fail, then we also create safe exits for them that they can exit back into the community in a safe, non-judgmental way.
Well, Dr. Bowen said something about well, she said lots of things. The Skittles.
Stan, I'm not so sure if when you say that the audience is a little confused with you.
No.
Let's get it right now.
No, I'm not.
I'm just kidding, man.
Right. No. The Skittles. Some people, as you can testify to the bowl of candies on the table there, those are the ones that those are the ones that people eat last.
The leftovers.
The leftovers, the orange. People like the cherry Starburst. Yes. What are those? Yeah, those are Starburst. And so, same thing with Skittles. So, while Skittles may be a community, people don't all like the same kind of flavors.
I agree.
And so, I think that when we start, as you suggest, respect everybody in the community for what they bring.
Absolutely.
You also mentioned about divide and conquer. Mm-hmm. Divide and conquer is a strategy.
Absolutely.
A very effective strategy.
Absolutely.
It's up to the community's elders, leaders, the sages, the chiefs,
the
caciques, to protect the community from those strategies.
Yes.
This is where your community warriors or protectors come in. If we know that that's a strategy, then it shouldn't work.
Right.
It works not because they're employing it. It works because we allow it to be effective.
Right.
And because
there's other variables, Stan. That's one of them.
There
but
may
there's a lot
be
of others.
But the success rate of that strategy is overwhelmingly obvious. And so we can't just point to that's a strategy they use. What's our strategy to defend against it? We fall victim to the divide and conquer strategy. We are the ones that have to stop that. We have to embrace one another. We don't have the luxury of not working together. We don't have the luxury of, I don't like him, or he got a better job, or they think they're all that. Well, I hope they do think they're all that. How can we tap into some of that all that and make it work for all of us?
So we can feel like we all that.
Right. So right. Instead of hating. So we have, and if we did that, it would confuse the divide and conquer strategy.
Yes.
We don't fight back. We have to do a better job of fighting back.
We kind of just go along to get along.
And that's
that's also a strategy for us that is a failing strategy.
Yes.
It's not a good strategy, but it's a strategy nevertheless. And I think that bringing awareness to that stuff is also, and so before we go on the break, I just want to say real quick, think about access once again. Access. If we don't have elected officials, then we don't have access to the laws, to making the laws, to creating them. So everything is about access.
That's no absolute 110%. And are your elected officials your representatives or someone else's?
Right. Are they creating access for you or for someone, or keeping, you know, the gatekeeping thing? Because we're used also as gatekeepers, whether we know it or not.
Well, that's a whole subject.
Yes. There's a lot of stuff being put out here, Dr. Maya, today.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, man.
I heard about the gatekeepers. Trust me.
Gatekeepers. To me, there ought to be the community ought to have community tribunals, and folks guilty of gatekeeping, and as far as I'm concerned, are guilty of high treason.
Ooh.
They should be given the option to move
out of our city. Yes,
out of the city. We'll pay for your moving.
I don't know
if they don't move in the nighttime, we move them.
Yes, I agree with that.
Try that, because that's how they roll in other towns.
Yeah, that's how we got to do it. Yeah,
we don't do that. Yeah. We need to demand better from people who supposedly represent us.
And not just that, but demand better from our citizens, because I spoke earlier.
Yeah.
If your kids or your neighbor's kids or whatever, kids in your neighborhood are shooting other people, robbing other people, they're bringing in terrible substances into our midst, and then we have adults out there applauding that type of behavior, then we need to hold them accountable. That's why I said we don't need to be applauding nobody's foolishness.
All right, we'll be right back.
Hi, my name is Marisha Garcia. I am from Brazil. I help HPU. I help families de Universidade de Harvard community. Estou muito feliz.
All right, I don't know what's going on with the video there.
Importante engajamento.
So Stan, during one of our breaks, you mentioned something that I think that the audience, our listeners and our viewers, need to hear about, and then they can weigh in on. So you wanna bring it back, or you want me to open it up?
Well, the issue was that Representative Edwin Vargas is not he's not going to be sworn in today, because he's going to move on to a different job. He's been offered a job in higher education. Now there's a state representative, I think his last name is Fox. There's two people that ran for office, and now are not going to be sworn in because they're
No,
taking
this was
other
a recent election.
The election that just happened in November, the one that everybody was either campaigning for or ran unopposed.
So the question that I asked, behind when we were on break is, did they take public money? And if they did, do they have to give that money back?
They do not have to give the money back if they did take public money because there's no mechanism, there's no requirement. If on the subject of public money, if your campaign is publicly financed and you sign up for the public, financing mechanism that the state has, which serves incumbents very well.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't serve at least half your term, you have to give that money back. That should be a prerequisite.
But there's nothing in the books now.
There's nothing. No, that's legislation that they ought to try to get through this year. So
hopefully we'll get that looked at after this.
I should hope so. I'm gonna mention it to people that are out there that our state delegation.
Yeah, legislators that can
right.
Well, we have to see how they feel about it.
Well, it doesn't really matter how they feel about it. It's how we feel about it.
Well, we want to.
They represent us.
I understand, Stan, but when I say stuff like that, I want to see where they stand on it because this also gives us a closer look at what we're working with.
Well, there are legislators who would sign on to this, and there are legislators who would be against it. Now, I would imagine the ones that don't want to have to pay it back would be against it, and the ones that don't think that there should be any financing at all would be for what we're talking about. But, no matter whether you're for or against, if someone uses money to attain an office,
public money, yeah,
to attain an office, and then they don't take the office after winning using the public money, then that's a disservice to the representatives because people put their trust in you. You volunteered to run to represent constituents. Now the constituents are not the top priority. Now I can understand that into your term, but before you take the term, and this is not personal because there are few elected officials who have given of themselves, like Ed Vargas, as a public servant from his days as a teacher up to where he is now. So I understand and I get that you may want to do something else and move on. But when you run for office, I mean, at least he didn't take the oath, stay a month or two and leave. Because he's not the first. You run for office and then now you also want to run for mayor or you want to run for something else. These people, so if that says to me that it's not about serving the people, it's about, I hate to use such a heavy word, it's about exploiting the people for your gain. Either you're going to serve the people or you're going to use the people. All right, so political office as a stepping stone is the people are a stepping stone. You're stepping to your next level on the people's backs or heads. That's not representing.
There's no question about that, but I'm listening to you, and there's so many more questions that come to mind. So I'm going to yield to your political expertise and ask you this question. Now that Ed is not going to run, he's not going to. What happens? What's next? It sounds like some backroom dealing took place.
I can't speak to that as a fact.
But I want you to speak to that. I want you to tell us what's next. Politically
speaking,
yes,
these things aren't done in a vacuum. It's like if the superintendent tells us she got a job somewhere. You didn't just get a job. You've been applying for that job for at least 6 months because the vetting process is a minimum of 6 months.
Right.
You just didn't let nobody know.
Right.
All right.
Right.
You can't apply for a job right before Christmas.
Last minute.
And you get a job like that.
January 1st.
Right. you had to know. So at what point? So
I'm not interested in at what point.
Right.
Here's the question.
So the question that you asked.
What's next?
There will be a special election The governor will call for a special election, and then there will be a certain amount of time for people to campaign and run for that office. Now, the word on the street is that Jimmy Sanchez is interested in that job.
Okay.
All right. He's a city councilman.
Anybody else?
That's the only one I've heard. It's early, so I don't hear all things, but that's.
What about young Michael Oretade?
He could run
because the question is,
absolutely,
if Eddie knew that he was not going to accept that office, did they do it to keep Mike from running because they knew he was going to be the slick? I know I can't say his name, but he's a slick. Oh my God, slick John Funfair.
Oh no, well, John is he is a senator,
right? But Mike ran against him.
Mike ran against John. There was no way he was going to win.
John is not. John's been tricking these fools for years.
Yeah, you're not going to beat John Funfair,
right? So they knew that. So the Democratic Party. Right?
Oh, so you're suggesting
they
that
plotted to
keep Edwin there until after the election. That way, Mike wouldn't run for Edwin's seat,
which he could have won.
Right? Because he had the popularity coming from 860 and Black Lives Matter. That could easily have been parlayed into. Is that the correct term?
Yeah. Parlay is a conversation.
Okay.
A talk.
All right. I didn't know that until now. It just sounded good. I've heard people use that word. You get parlayed into.
Yeah. It's it's a conversation.
All right. He's very well read, much more so than me.
I don't know about that.
Well, I do, because I hate to read. The only thing I read is the Bible, so my mind is very narrow.
I'm not signing on.
Very myopic. You leave that one alone. He's a smart guy. My goodness. So nonetheless, he could have parlayed that into a victory.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's the 6th district, right?
Yep.
Okay, so now what'll happen if Jimmy Sanchez were to run and win, then that would open up a seat on city council, and the council would select somebody, or the party would select somebody. Yeah. There's no election. And they would serve very short term, but you know.
So I think they already know. They already know who that person is.
Absolutely.
They already have that person in mind.
It's a chess game, right? They're playing chess, not checkers.
No, I don't even think it's chess.
Well, I think they want to play chess, but they're really playing checkers because we all know what they're doing. Chess is a little bit more secretive. You know, there's a little bit, you have to have a better strategy than. But, nowadays, though, and, Dave Chappelle said it best. Mm-hmm. When Donald Trump said the system is rigged, and the guy said, well, you have any evidence? Can you reason? I do it every day. And so now the real bold politicians, they just get on a media conference and say to you, listen, I'm going to be stealing $250,000 from the union pension and another couple million from this place. And I just wanted you to know, and we won't be answering any questions. Have a good day. And people will clap at it. They'll clap, and the guy just walks. I mean, look at that brother from New York. That
lied.
That the old black dude from New York.
Oh.
I forget his name now, man. But he was like a superhero for the nefarious. This guy, man, he had like condos and islands, and he had all kinds of things that he could never ever afford. And unfortunately, he was on some of the committees that would have to investigate him. So come on, man.
Right.
So you know what?
We know about them.
Go back a little bit. A better constituent is actually something that is necessary, right? Because here's the thing:
Stan talks about that every week.
You got that amen choir that you're coming with this message, and this message is against you as a constituent, but you out here saying amen to it. And so
co-signing all of it,
actually listening to what is being conveyed or parlayed in these conversations in public, or are they just swept over because they're in some type of mental fog where they're ready to give their two thumbs up regardless of what's said or done? That's the crazy thing about it. It's like, what are we thinking about in terms of what's being said and what's being done? And so it makes me think, so how do we begin to hold individuals accountable when there's a lot of individuals that are not even taking in what's really going on that is detrimental to positive and productive outcomes, right? So if it's a foggy mindset, how do you even begin to hold someone accountable if you ain't even in a mental capacity to be like, I need to question that. Why would you say something like that? So I've heard stuff come from the pulpit, and I was like, that is not getting the amen from me. That is absolutely not. No, that message, I am not co-signing on that at all. And so we've got to really stop and think for ourselves. Did I just hear what that person just said? And if I say no, then I should ask them to repeat that. And if I say yes, then I darn sure should not be co-signing on some nonsense that just came out of that person's mouth. And so in terms of the better constituent, we really have to get better with understanding the value of communication, which is not so much what people say, but how it is that we actively listen to what they say, and then how we decide that we're going to respond to it or not respond to it. Because there's a lot going on right before our eyes, and we're not addressing it head on and as quickly as we should to really begin to hold individuals accountable for the nonsense that comes out of their mouth.
So, Dr. Maya, that's a wonderful, wonderful narrative. But I'm just going to share with the audience once again two words that that we have known. One of the words maybe as an adult, right? But the other one since a child. And we don't even think about. So these two words are, the first one is spell, right? And I think that we have to look at the way that we use words and how they can be used to cast spells. Because how do you account for some of this zealous-like behavior that individuals exhibit? You know what I'm saying? And the other one is access. Again, access. But so I think that our communities at some level are under some kind of spell that they can't get, they can't get past. You're still voting for people that you know are not doing the best for you and your family and your community, and yet you still go to the poll and vote for them. You applaud the chicanery that you're talking about, Dr. Maya. You know what I'm saying? So now, I think that for me, when I look at some of this stuff, I think that a lot of times, people of color in our communities, in the past, I'm not talking about now, in the past, we have applauded some of that chicanery because it wasn't committed against us. So a lot of times when people committed chicanery in our communities back in the day, was against the authorities. So we applauded that. But then they took that same nonsense and they brung it and used it against us. But we're not the enemy. We have identified the enemy. So we have to, think about how we're going to move for now on. And I keep saying every step has to be done in intelligence and in goodwill and in good faith.
All right. Now let's try and take our break. We'll be right back. Stick and stay.
Hi,
My name's J.C. McCauley.
I'm Naisha McCauley, and you're watching AccessTV.org.
Oh, yeah. All right. Welcome back. It's Morning Talk. J.C. McCauley, Kasiki, and Dr. Matt Bowen in the house. And, of course, you all out there. One of the viewers says, this is a very interesting and important conversation. Mm-hmm.
I want to switch the tone just a little bit. All right. I did start us off with some technology, but what I found online in regards to 2023 for trends in educational technology, since that's the field I teach in, is the following. So we have high schoolers that transition into colleges as traditional students. Now, let's take it back just a step, because when it is that we're looking at our school-age children, thinking in terms of what's going on inside of the classrooms in preparation for them to go into higher ed or otherwise. 8 things that were spoken of in terms of 2023 in lieu of how we currently do things is related to educational technology. So we have to have an understanding of what collaborative learning looks like in the classroom, right? So in terms of collaborative learning, basically the students get involved with this process, right? So it's like a team effort, teachers as well as students. And so collaborative learning transitions into the workplace, because there's very few workplaces where individuals don't work alongside other individuals in terms of a team. Now, that's the first thing that we have to think about. The second thing mentioned is learning outside the classroom environment. So, are there many opportunities to learn outside of the classroom? Absolutely. We actually make our own opportunities when it is that we can think creatively in regards to what it is that nature presents itself to us as Lou was speaking about, as well as where it is that we go into multiple environments, be it the mall, the supermarket, and the like. The third aspect is social media and learning, right? So what dynamic does social media play in the learning journey for our students, right? Tying that in can allow for a great conversation to be a part of how it is that teachers and students connect those dots, where it is that most times than not, individuals find themselves on a variety of social media platforms. Number 4 is interactivity in classroom. Now, thinking about my days of old in school, most times I found myself sitting behind a desk. Was it boring? Could you take a nap? Absolutely. So we have to know how to engage our youth. We can't bore them to tears or into nap mode and think that it is that they're going to walk away from that day's activities or lack thereof fulfilled. Number 5 is data management and analytics, right? And analytics. So when it is that we think about what we're currently doing online and beyond, there's so much data that's out there constantly being transported to a destination from a source. Are our students being able to acknowledge how to utilize this data and actually synthesize this, meaning make it make sense to them and then be able to present it to respective audiences? Is that happening? It should be, if it's not. Number 6 is immersive learning with AR and VR. So we've got our AR, which is our artificial reality, and we've got our VR, which is our virtual reality. And so these are dynamics in technology that are being used in hospitals as well as other industries in regards to finding solutions to industry problems. Do our students know anything about that and how it is that they themselves can see themselves as contributing to this arena? Number 7 is
now the AR and VR. What's the difference between the two?
So in AR, what you're doing is looking at things from the perspective that you create an environment that is going to allow for you to manipulate certain scenarios. Virtual reality puts you into said virtual environment to deploy certain aspects. So for example, when I first put on a VR headset, I was in a world where I could actually talk to the characters as well as manipulate specific types of tools within that environment to get the type of outcome that I was seeking.
Yeah,
and so level. So it's a way to manipulate an environment that is not real but simulated as being such, so that you can see how it could possibly work out in a real life, more tangible situation.
And the next level of that
is next level, right?
The next level of that is going to be where you can actually, move like that. Actually, you're actually going to be able to do that. It's not going to be through AR or, artificial intelligence or the other one. And that's what they're working on now. And that's scary.
Singularity.
You'll be able to transpose yourself to different places, and be able to move things. Yes.
That's what VR is all about, that virtual reality environment. Your artificial reality is like using Siri and talking and requesting certain types of answers coming through. So we're utilizing this in regards to hopefully making our lives a little bit simpler, but more so when you think about problem solving before you try it in a more in actual reality, getting some type of feedback prior to deployment in our own individual tangible lives. And so that's something that's been going on for quite some time. As a matter of fact, we see a lot of technology hitting the big screen through movies and television prior to it even reaching the mainstream marketplace. And so from Star Trek to Star Wars and beyond, we've seen a lot of the gadgets that we use currently in those particular movies and series. And so if they can do things in the movies based on the technology that they present to us, and then it transfer into our real life day-to-day actions and behaviors and the types of outcomes that we receive currently, then best believe when it is that you're looking at movies and the technology that they bring forth, that's coming to a store near you sometime soon. So something to think about. Number 7 is gamification and education. And so when it is that you turn things into games, more than likely, because our youth are under development through building their mental capacities, a game is a good way to get individuals to understand the concepts and processes involved with specific types of disciplines. So that's something also to be considered. And so lastly, number 8 is online data and cybersecurity. Now, with all the data breaches that go on based on us being online, why shouldn't our students have a knowledge about how it is the inner workings are happening behind the scenes when it comes to us using this technology? And so it's a big to-do when it is that we start thinking about the transition from a McDonald's or service industry turning into being fully automated, where no people are necessary to be on that particular premises in order to deliver said services and products.
And that's a wonderful subject that you started off today with, and I'll say it again. I stated it earlier. You're a fool if you shop at any of those self-serve checkouts, because you are literally eliminating yourself out of the equation.
Absolutely.
So we have to be very careful, and we have to push back on all of that. Anything that eliminates us in our, you know, in our contributions to this planet is not good.
And that's a deep sentiment. And you're right. The elimination of us from the equation means that there's going to be a lot less job opportunities, especially in the service field. If we don't apply the amount of pressure needed to push back on eliminating the human aspect from these service jobs.
That's a real elitist.
It's very much a sad state of affairs, but it's interesting how it's a trickle-down effect, right? They'll pilot it in little places to see how it works and how the community and or neighborhoods.
Yeah, we've seen that with the self-driving cars, Dr. Maya.
I wouldn't
a lot of
trust
accidents
that
with them,
far
though.
as I know you're not gonna send me an Uber without a driver.
Well, the future is here. These things are coming. You know, Walmart has the self-checkout aisles, the one on Flatbush, and they just installed a whole lot of new ones.
Yeah,
and they're always broken.
Yep.
They're
and
like never.
And not just that, but
never
the whole
working.
concept is very elitist. Think about this, because what they're telling you now is that they only want to keep enough of us regular folks where we can maintain and serve, you know, do the stuff that they need.
Well, I wouldn't necessarily call it elitist, but Stick and Stay will be right back.
How do you define evil? Is it the pedophile school administrator or taxation without representation? Is it the gatekeeping community leaders who sell out the very people they are fighting for? Or is evil the politician that puts out lies and takes in cash? However you may classify evil, having to choose the lesser of two evils still leaves you with evil. No wonder so many people don't vote. It's time for constituents to flip the script and leave the plantation of party politics and free your political mind.
Good afternoon. My name is Nwalki Tete. I'm a parent to a student in Hartford High, and I would say the program was very good. It taught us a lot about how to deal with our kids, how to handle situations. So I would say it's good for all parents to partake if you can. And our coach was very good. She taught us a lot about the Parents University. So I'm so happy and I'm glad I took part in the Parents University. So thank you so much. Love you. My name is Nwalki Tete. Bye.
Hi.
My name's J.C. McCauley.
I'm Naisha McCauley, and you're watching AccessTV.org.
All right, my friends, welcome back. Morning Talk, last segment. Want to remind you, every morning, 8 o'clock, tune in. And we're here. It's Morning Talk.
So, Stan, before I forget, brother, I wanted to bring up a topic that you and I discussed the other day, and then I talked to Lou Brown, the esteemed elder, and
living legend.
Living legend, yes. And so he has some stuff to say, and that subject is, I was driving down the Berlin Turnpike with my friend, and there was a place for lease, and I said, man, that'll be a good place for lease. And he said, no, why would you want to lease here? And I said, man, do you know how much traffic goes through here? Be incredible for business. And he said, every business on the Berlin Turnpike besides Walmart that attracts black and brown people is shut down. And then I started thinking about how many businesses, black and brown owned businesses, are on the Berlin Turnpike. And initially I couldn't think of one at all. I called Lou Brown, I called Andrew Davis, people from the community, and Lou said that there may be something at the beginning of the Berlin Turnpike, but he couldn't tell me who owned it. And I know of one all the way down, almost across the street from Home Depot. There's a plaza over there, and it's called Sudor Taino. And the owner is, I don't know if she's still a police officer, but she used to be a Hartford police officer by the name of Carla Rodriguez. So I would like the audience and our viewers and our listeners to chime in on that. Have there ever been any black-owned business, black or brown-owned businesses on the Berlin Turnpike?
Yes. Mine was one of them. I used to be located 2512 Berlin Turnpike.
Where's that at?
Right next to the, I want to call that I want to say it's the Advance Auto.
I know what it is.
It's across the street.
Oh, yeah. It's right in front of like the ShopRite and stuff like that, or in that area over there?
Yeah, I used to have my business located there physically before I moved it in-house. So yes.
How was it over there? What was your business over there?
So my business is Smart Strategy LLP, and we deal with technology in terms of resolving issues from laptops as well as desktops, as well as creating a space for individuals who want to be certified in technology as well. So for individuals who are seeking certifications in technology, contact Smart Strategy LLP.
Beautiful.
Find me on Facebook, Dr. Maya Bowen, and so you can contact me through that. And you can also find Smart Strategy LLP on Facebook as well. And so with that being said, we were there. Now, the interesting thing about being in the technology field is that if individuals aren't having a real need for launching into getting certain types of solutions, the foot traffic for us was kind of slow. So it's really by word of mouth that we acquire a lot of our customers. However, with that being said, there is plenty of traffic that drives up and down the Berlin Turnpike. And so if a business did decide to move there, it would be, in my opinion, a good location because of all of the traffic that comes through that area. But in 2023, moving forward, because a lot of opportunities have found themselves to be placed online, the opportunity is even greater to not have a physical location whereby you have to pay rent, so that you can attract a more global audience in terms of your customer base, as well as not having to pay the expense of rent at a physical location.
Yeah.
And I think that a lot of people found out that during the pandemic that you actually don't need a shop, you can do it from home. I mean, look at what an incredible job Stan is doing right now. We're right Absolutely. Here in his house. in a studio that he created. So yeah, I agree. So Dr. Maya, did you know of any other, and how long were you there? So you moved because of the pandemic. I just want to clear that up.
Well, I moved because I was actually transitioning into my full-time role as a professor, and I would be traveling a lot to Boston. And so it didn't make a lot of sense to actually try to physically hold down that space.
Absolutely, yes.
And try to accommodate my customers physically at a location versus being available to them online. And so, right after that, that's when the pandemic hit. And so it all worked out because the transition became overwhelmingly online with the pandemic, placing individuals within their own individual silos for contact-less communication and opportunities. So it just so happened that before the pandemic hit, I had already made that transition. And so it's one of those things where we have to really start to see ourselves as global participants, because at the end of the day, we have this resource per the internet to allow for us to broaden our scope and our audience in terms of a customer base and an audience base. And so at any given point in time, someone can be online 24/7 across the globe. While I'm asleep, somebody's up, and while they're asleep, I'm up. And it works out well when it is that you're able to be available through this type of online space.
See, it seems to me that you can absolutely know, because new businesses, closing businesses, and transitioning businesses, the towns along the Berlin Turnpike have that data, and so you can know, the reasons why. Well, maybe not the reasons why, but you could know, how long a store has been open, and that's data that you could attain. Most people have reasons why they want to be certain places, and businesses have changed. I can't think of, there's very few businesses that I can think of that have to have a physical location. Car wash needs to. There's certain things that you offer where a physical location is superior to being at home. My kind of work, I could be home. I've had lots of people say, you need to have a studio of your own. No, you would like me to be in a studio that you could use. I don't need to have a studio
right. That's true.
to do what I do, because I don't need a studio.
Right.
Otherwise, I would have one. My work isn't in a studio. Now, if you're going to do work where you need a real controlled environment, then you need a studio. But studios are expensive. But, there was a Krispy Kreme on the Berlin Turnpike.
Yes.
They lasted, I don't even think they were over in 6 months.
Yeah, that shut down right away.
Because people don't like Krispy Kreme.
Yeah.
There's another donut place, real popular, Tim Hortons. Is it Tim Hortons? Tim? Yeah. Or
I think
one
I
of
heard
those.
Of that. Yeah.
It's a big, another one like Krispy Kreme, closed up. Folk like Dunkin'. Now there's loads of Dunkin' Donuts on the Turnpike, because they can't service all the people who want to go in.
Yeah.
But the enterprise that you're interested in, I think, would do very well on the Turnpike, because
we do well wherever we go, Stan.
Right. Your clientele is not a prejudicial clientele. No. They don't care what color folk are. So
my business cuts all the racial ties, all of it, all that it cuts right across.
Right across. So and so if you got a good product, people want it. They don't care what you look like, who you are, or where it's from. Yeah,
I just want to say, Stan, that it's just something to think about, and how not just in Newington, but how in these towns that surround Hartford, how our folk are being accepted into the business community in a wholesome way, in a professional way, without any other racial nonsense and all the other stuff that we have to go through.
Well, I think I think that's my saying of in the land of should, would, and could, anyone could be mayor.
Yeah.
But those lands don't exist. In Hartford, how are businesses with people of color treated? Now that to me is an issue, particularly in a town where it's majority black and brown.
Yes.
So how many black and brown businesses are flourishing in the city? And what is the relationship of the major chambers of commerce in the city toward black and brown people? That to me is an issue because we live here. Now a whole lot of folk don't live out in Berlin and Newington.
Yes.
Or Southington.
I would say that the thing that I would add to that, Stan, is that at least we can see our folk in business in Hartford. Whether they're going through some things or not, that's to be, debated, or we'll have a conversation on that. But we can see them.
Well, I don't.
Other places they're non-existent, brother.
Well, that's not true though. You just don't know where they are.
I haven't seen any.
Well, how many businesses you stopped in on the Berlin Turnpike? I go up and down there all the time. I've never stopped anywhere in there except Walmart and the Price Chopper, because I'm not interested in the businesses on there. Okay. There's not a business on that turnpike I'm interested in other than Home Depot, Lowe's. I'm on my way to Ted's. It's just a turnpike. It's a turnpike, and I shop where I know where my money's being spent. I'm not. It doesn't matter to me where my people are. I'm going to where they are. So if they're on the turnpike, I would go there. Like I would shop at her place. I didn't know she was there, but I would go to her to shop. But we're running out of time, unfortunately. Any goodbyes?
Yes, I do. I just want to shout out two incredible young men, man, in our community. I know them personally, and I'm very proud of the work that they're doing. And they're young, and they've been doing it for a long time already. So I think that it makes me very happy to know that that we have these incredible, talented, caring, loving, skillful young men and women in our community. And these two young men are, the first one is Walden St. Just. This young brother is from the island of Haiti, and he came here and he made an incredible name for himself and his family. Now he is the head basketball coach at Buckley High School. And Walden, man, keep up the good work, brother. Yes. And then the other brother is Ismael Caro, the son of the legend, the living legend, Israel Caro, a brother who's been working in the hospital, and then he did Park and Rec for, must be about 40 years now. And so his son Ismail is the head coach at Cheney Tech in Manchester, and he's doing an outstanding job out there. And Ismail, I'm so proud of you and all the work that you're doing, brother. Thank you for representing yourself, your family, and your community in an extremely good light. So these two young men, shout out to you. And I just want to shout out all my ancestors, all the people in this community have done and sacrificed so much so we could be here. I stand with you humbly, and I honor you today. Thank you for all you do. Peace, family. Yes.
Dr. Bowen.
Yes. So in 2023, let's go big. Let's do no harm. And let's rock 2023. Will we find peace in these streets as well as prosperity, so that it is that we can advance each other and embrace each other in community.
And I'm co-signing that twice, Dr. Maya.
All right, my friends, our time together is up. We will see you next time. You'll have a fabulous rest of your day. Bye.